Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala Rasulihil Kareem, amma ba'd, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I hope that you can hear me or you can see me. Welcome to another session where we go live and we give you an opportunity to ask questions and present some of your questions that you might want to ask. So we are going to go live, and in fact, we are live. We already got a question straight away, right off the mark, without even waiting. And we don't have a name, but we have a title: "Truth Slays Error and Illusion." Illusion. Truth slays error and illusion. I don't think truth slays anything. Truth doesn't need to have violence to it. Truth doesn't need to be violent. Truth needs to be beautiful. Truth needs to be presented most of the time in a beautiful manner. Okay, not always. Of course, sometimes you need to be stern, ashidda, but often the way to convince people, generally speaking, when you're talking ammatan, is to be gentle. رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُم. Again, this goes back to people not understanding the context and their audience. If you're talking in a masjid to a congregation of people, they're already converted in most cases. They already listen to you. There's no need to shout at them. There's no need to scream at them. There's no need to be, loud pitch towards them. But if you're talking to a group of people who are arrogant, petulant, not willing to listen, then you need to really be stern with them. So it depends on your audience, depending who you're talking to and the topic that you're talking about. Anyway, let's deal with your particular question. Salam, brother. What website did you? Oh, there's a word missing. Did you use to purchase Abdul Wahab Sharani's books from? So for me, I didn't buy it from England. I actually got it gifted to me. I have a friend. I don't know if I can mention his name because he's a very humble person, but I have a friend who basically gave me a pile of his books. They're on my bookshelf over there. They were gifted to me. So Allah grant them to you, bi'iznillahi ta'ala. Imam Sha'rani is a very, very important scholar for a number of reasons. He's in the line of people like Shah Waliullah, Abdul Haq Muhaddis Dehlevi, in particular Allama Sirhindi, and of course Ibn Arabi. If you want to understand Ibn Arabi and you don't want to fall into the fallacy of criticizing or attacking people, then Imam Sha'rani rahimahullah ta'ala is an important scholar that you should read about. Maybe one day we'll do a live session, we'll just talk about him. I am getting to a stage now where people are asking me to do more interactive sessions on scholars, books, and topics, and even getting speakers in. So I was gifted them. Some of them I bought from the website, so you can buy them from. I think some of the books, for example, this one here, I happen to have it. This one, Al Kibrit Al Ahmar. I think this has been translated. Um, that's by, of course, Imam Sha'rani. This one here. That one you can buy from like Ismail books or Zakaria books or something. Yani. Okay. But have a teacher that can guide you through these texts. You need to have a specialist who can guide you through these texts. Wa alaikum salam al-Roshan. Welcome. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Welcome. So good to see you here. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We'll take some questions from the inbox in a second. Let's just get the first set of questions out of the way. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Okay. So, Ahmed. Wa alaikum salam. What did you hear thoughts on the books as a substitute for sitting in the company of righteous, for example, reading the Mulfuzal literature? So there's a lot of things that need to be unpacked there, Ahmed, my friend. Number one is books are not substitution or a substitute for the sitting in the company of righteous. They are both complementary. So sit with the righteous people, sit with good people, pious people, moral people, ethical people, people who know what they're talking about, and also read books at the same time. You've also asked about reading the Malfuzat. Malfuzat literature is very important because they are usually uh, people who have transcribed what the ulama have said, or they have summarized what the sheikh has said or something. So it's a very good window into that particular world. But Ahmed, my friend, be aware that some of these are classical texts. They've been written in a world that's very different. So sometimes when they say certain things, just be aware that they are talking about the audience and the people in that community. Mathalan, for example, many of these books are written when we didn't have cars or planes, or we didn't have technology, or we didn't have healthcare systems that we have today. Of course, none of this is absolutely brilliant, but we live in a different world to people in the past. So when they say certain things, it's important to bear in mind that they are talking about their particular audience. Nevertheless, it's very, very useful. The second thing, very, very important, muhim, jiddan, yani very, very important to be aware of, is that when you read these books of the ulama, they're usually based on something that they've experienced or something they have from experience, like tajruba, which is valid, or it's based on their own personal intuitions. Now, this is useful, but it cannot be used as a hujjah in the Sharia. So if they say something, it's usually their own preferences, but one cannot say that this is how the Sharia is. Because for us, the Sahib al-Sharia is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and of course the Quran, of course, and the fuqaha, the ulama. So what does the Sharia actually say? What is normative in these traditions? So we read these things, very, very useful. I read Malfuzat. I find some of them very, very personally, spiritually edifying. If you read the Malfuzat of Hakim al-Ummah, for example, must be read. Qari Tayyab, whoever, and it can be from other traditions as well. I'm talking about the South Asian tradition, but whichever tradition you read, be aware that a lot of this is their own personal experiences. Okay. Um, is it true that Fususu Hikam? There's some debate on that. There's some conversation on that. There have been reflections on that. A lot of times, what happens is people write books, and they either a number of things can happen. They develop in their ideas, and they write something later on, and they have more of a different perspective on things. So that's important. Number two is you need to be aware of the sort of way they are writing and the genre they are writing. So, for example, if you look at someone that I'm somewhat familiar with, Shah Waliullah Dehlawi, if you read like his book here, his Iqtul Jeed, this is a book on the topic of taqleed, whether you should follow school of law or not, and so forth. It's very technical in nature. It's a technical text in nature. Um, but if you read his other book, like his visions that he had, Tafhimatul Ilahiyya, for example, um, sort of text that he wrote on the back of mystical experiences that he had when he was in Hijaz, when he was in Medina, and he saw the Prophet ﷺ, and he saw certain visions. That's very different. So both styles of writing are very, very different. And so one should be aware of what type, what we call a register, what type, what mode they are writing in. This goes back to the early question from Ahmed. When we read Malfuzat, for example, we should be aware that that's a certain genre. Okay. If the same Sheikh who's writing Malfuzat, for example, take Hazrat Tanvi, Mawlana Ashraf Tanvi, the Malfuzat genre is very different to if you were reading something on tafsir, perhaps, or if you're reading something on fiqh from him, perhaps, because they are conforming to certain rules of that particular science. All right. So bear that in mind. So before you read books, you should know what kind of paradigm or what kind of science it's situated in. So you don't kind of make accusations against them or attack them. You need to know the rules with which they are conforming to. Tamam. Very, very important to remember this when you're engaging in these conversations. So I mentioned a book last time. I just want to show it to you. Samir, brother Samir, Dr. Samir Dajani, who's based in London, has his book Sufis and Sharia. Worth reading. I have a copy, as you can see. I've plastered it with stickers. Worth reading that book. That's something that I'm reading at the moment. There's a book in Urdu, if you're interested in Hadith studies, which I think is brilliant. It's called Fawaid Jamia, Sharh Ijalat Nafi'ah. This is very, very useful as well on studies to do with Hadith, especially people like Shah Waliullah's son, Shah Abdul Aziz. And this book was written by Maulana Dr. Muhammad Abdul Halim Chishti, rahimahullah ta'ala. So I'm reading that book in the background. So worth keeping, your bookshelf busy, keeping yourself busy reading and distracted. I'm also reading Allama Kawthari's Maqalat al-Kawthari. I'm particularly interested in a critique that he has of Shah Waliullah, which I haven't seen anyone respond to. He has some things to say about Shah Waliullah, but those are scholarly things. This happens, by the way, my friends. I know a lot of people, lay people, they get really surprised when ulama say things about each other. This is normal. They this is what scholarship is. As long as it's not personal, as long as you're not attacking them, ulama do say things about each other, but it should always remain scholarly. It should always remain with good adab, good akhlaq. You should have good opinion about people. So, for example, when I read the critique by Allama Kawthari, who was the Shaykh al-Islam, the last Shaykh al-Islam of the Ottoman Empire, he had some things to say about Shah Waliullah, but he always said it with good adab. Okay. Uh, in Birmingham, oh, I don't know. In Birmingham, they won't. I don't know if Ibn Arabi would even be allowed in places like Birmingham, Habibi, Roshan. Birmingham used to be a place of just hadith focus. It's a joke. If you know the inside joke, you know what I'm saying. Quran and Sunnah. That's all they say. What are we reading? What are we reading? Anything other than Quran Sunnah, we read the Quran and Sunnah. We read Quran and Sunnah alongside pious people. But in Birmingham, in that land, I don't know of anyone. I mean, you could probably go to a Sufa Institute and ask them and speak to them, and maybe they'll have some ulama that they are familiar with who can help you to understand them. But before you read Ibn Arabi and these advanced texts, these theosophical or philosophical texts, or these mystical texts, it's very, very important that you have a good grounding in the Sharia. So you're well grounded in Kalam, theology, in fiqh, and these subjects as well. Okay. So be aware of that, Roshan, but not to put you off. Otherwise, you'll just kind of get lost a little bit. Okay, and Ibn Arabi has his own language. I was reading something by Shah Waliullah recently, a shara on it by the late Mufti Sa'id Palampuri, who was a Shaykh al-Hadith at the Deoband Madrasa. He has a shara on the Hujjatullah al-Balid. I have it here. I mean, mine looks very tired because I've been reading it for many years with a Shaykh. And he mentions that even when you read Shah Waliullah, because he writes in such a um, different way, that sometimes he use words and it may not mean the thing that it means. So bear that in mind. Okay. Tamam. You know what I like about this channel? Most of you that come on, you're not strictly interested in fiqh, right? You're interested in learning, you're interested in developing yourself. That's brilliant to see, because sometimes, people are just obsessed with fiqh questions, which is good. Fiqh is about practice, and you get a lot of those questions. But fiqh is one part of the three, the triad, right? When you do fiqh, you should also have a gaze towards aqidah, theology, right? How sound is this in terms of aqidah, right? And you should have another gaze fixed on tasawwuf, spirituality, and the same for the other way around. So when you're doing tasawwuf, when you're studying spirituality, you should make sure it's connected to sound practice, and it's also connected to sound theology. And the other way around, when you're answering questions on aqidah, try and bring some fiqh into it, try and bring some spirituality. Have a very well-rounded approach. Sometimes you hear people and they're telling you it's halal and haram, and it's just a bunch of rules, but they're not relating it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are connecting to spirituality. So all three registers. One of my teachers, may Allah bless him and elevate him, one of my many teachers, Mufti Ikram al-Haqsa, who's one of the imams here in Blackburn, he always emphasizes this, that it's not just about giving rules, it's also about teaching people spirituality, it's about giving people guidance, it's about helping them. Mm. We can all intellectualize all day long, but it's about actually helping people. Tamam? Abdul Aziz, good to see you. How's things? Wa alaikum salam. What's this about Imam Abu Yusuf saying regarding Ibn Kalam? You have to send me the references. In particular, the book that he's writing in. So send me the references. You've got my details, and maybe we can address it next week. Um, all right. I'm not getting rid of you, Abdul Aziz. I'm just getting. I need to read the context, and maybe it's a good example. Here you go. Whoever seeks religion through Kalam will become a heretic. I think it kind of relates to my broader point. Kalam is important because you need to defend the religion, but it's not the only way to understand Islam. What happens in a lot of people is when they start studying, they study one science only, and they become obsessed with that. So they might study fiqh and they don't give much um, focus on hadith or they may study hadith but not give much focus on something else or kalam. Have a good overall view of everything, and never take scholars' statements, individual statements, on face value. Place them within their time, place them within their broader writing. So Imam Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah ta'ala, he was a great jurist, but of course he was a great theologian. He was a mutakallim as well. Of course he had to be. I mean, he studied with the greatest theologian, Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala, who defended Sunnism from many heretics. So I think he's warning people. I haven't read the statement myself, but he's warning people that don't just become atomistic. Most of us moderns, when we study, we only study a certain thing. When we go to university, you might study economics, but you study a niche within economics. You might study medicine, you become a specialist. What we're supposed to do is then learn a little bit, but relate that. So if you're becoming a doctor, masalan, for example, then yes, become the best doctor on the planet. That's what Muslims should be. You should be an absolute mujtahid as a doctor, an absolute expert in medicine. But then you should be able to talk about ethics and philosophy of medicine. You should be able to talk about other things, religion, and how all of that becomes a holistic whole. When you can do that, that shows that you have a deep understanding of the subject. We think that if it's narrow and you have a depth, that's deep understanding. No, you have that, but you also have the breadth of knowledge as well. You can approach it from different perspectives. Okay, that's very, very important. Tahir, ahlan wa sahlan. Wa alaikum salam. Any recommendations how to study the education? Read Kitabul Ilm. Read Imam Ghazali's Kitabul Ilm. You will get a good insight into his pedagogy. That's in his first book. It's been translated. Read it carefully. Read it with a sheikh if you need to. Read it. We study it as part of something that I teach for Al Bala online. Read that. Read his other book, which is on Mishkatul Masabi. Read that as well, his separate book. Read his Bidayatul Hidayah, which has been translated. Read his in Ihya Ulumuddin. Read his Ajaib al Qalb. You will get all of that there, Alhamdulillah. So Imam Ghazali has some interesting insights into pedagogy. Read his own Nasiha, Ayyuhal Walad, as well. So you will get a lot of insight into the man himself, rahimahullah ta'ala. So read his books for yourself. If you can, I always say to people, read the primary sources, read the books for yourself. So, for example, I'm writing a chapter for a university publication on Shah Waliullah. There's lots being written by academics, Muslims, non-Muslims, on various topics. But sometimes you have to read it yourself. Sometimes you have to do the labor of reading the book yourself. You have to sort of sit down and say, okay, let me try and understand what I get from that book. And then I'll read what other people have written as in terms of paper. Tamam? So that's important. That takes a lot more work because it's easy reading a journal article. But what's not easy is reading it for yourself. Okay. Yeah, the translation, Tahir, I think there's a Fons Vitae one. I don't think they both done the same one, so they might have done one or the other. I don't have in front of me on my shelf. I'd have to disappear from the screen. But there is a translation available. Translations are useful, but the Arabic, especially when it comes to Imam Ghazali, his Arabic is very, very different when you read it. You can feel a difference in the way that he writes. Very direct. It's moving. I mean, as some of my students who've been studying with me, they will tell you this. It's powerful, and everyone takes Imam Ghazali as an imam. So there are passages in there very, very important, very, very useful. To read it holistically, Tahir. What I mean by that is what we do is when we read something, we just read certain passages, understand his world, understand why he was writing, understand why he might have written something in there, try and situate it with the broader world that he lived in. You can make sense. Sometimes he might say something which you might find a little bit objectionable. Then you can understand, well, why would he say that? Is there a reason why he'd say something like that? So there are then books that you can read, which basically give you an insight into the world that Imam Ghazali lived in. So I can provide references for that as well. That's broader reading. Okay. So Tahir, I hope that's been useful. Allah bless you too. Thank you so much. Ahlan wa sahlan. Abdul Aziz, thank you. Try to explain things as best as I can. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we succeed. So this whole session is trying to help you, also trying to help myself, because when you ask questions, I get to learn. So your questioning, your intelligent questions, opportunity for me to learn more about what's going on out there. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So these are some books that I'm reading. These are some reflections. Um, read knowledge, sit with the ulama, as was said earlier, about keeping company with the mashayikh. Very, very important. I think suhbah, I've said it as well as Ahmed said before. I've said that sitting with the mashayikh is very, very important. So as much as we talk about books and ilm, we should sit with the ulama, good ulama, like ulama who are knowledgeable, who practice their faith, who are deeply learned, who are compassionate, who are well-grounded, rational, who understand Quran, who understand Sunnah, who understand the fiqh, who live in a real world. Um, live with them, like sit with them, get their suhbah bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. All right. So very, very important to do that and make your life like, outside of work, outside of school, outside everything else, university, make your life about ilm, make your life about knowledge. Right? There's nothing in this world that's more honorable, that's more dignified, that will lift you to a higher state than learning ilm, like learning knowledge. There's nothing above that. And so that's very, very important. Okay, so let's see if you got some more questions. All right. So I think we had one on the email, um, which was about issues to do with using mobile phones and how sometimes it can become a unhealthy addiction. And actually, yesterday somebody, believe it or not, I actually play football. So somebody mentioned yesterday, a friend of mine, Sajid, he mentioned that Maulana, when mobile phones are a huge distraction. My phone broke down a few days ago, stopped working, and it broke down. I was at university. I came back at night, and it just crashed. It wouldn't come on, and I just said to myself, "What a lovely day I had." My phone wasn't working. My wife was with me. She's usually the only person I really need to talk to. If I need to check something, I can check on emails. And I had a wonderful day, just being totally switched off. And sometimes, we just need to switch off from our tech, technical devices or mobile phones or laptops to spend time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes we don't need to know everything. We just need to work on our spirituality. And Imam Ghazali has a book. Many ulama have a book on the virtues of khalwa. Sometimes our soul needs to be just detached because we're so burdened with materialism, with technology, with all these things around us. It blinds us. And it's very, very fascinating when you think about it spiritually. The ulama of the past, they used to see things that we don't see anymore, and it's hard for us to believe that they will see these things. But I think it's perfect, rational, because our senses are so heightened. Like our eyes, our ears. It's so overwhelmed with like information and everything else out there. When you think about it, at night when you go to sleep, your senses are completely switched off. Illa mashallah. Like your eyes are closed, your ears are, you're not really listening, and then you see dreams. You feel things, you experience things that only you can feel, and it's only real to me, real to you. So if you tell me about you in a day, I'd be like, I never saw that. I just saw you sleeping, yani, for 8 hours. I didn't see you doing what you did in your dream. So we have experiential knowledge. And one of the reasons that knowledge comes to us, we have these experiences, the ulama and the mashayikh says to us, is that because we're completely detached from the dunya when we're sleeping, our soul is liberated, our soul is free, right? It's kind of like not no longer held down by the dunya. Can you see? So people who are really pious, who are no longer connected to the dunya or not as much in the dunya, but they still live in the dunya, it's perfectly possible that in their awakened state, they can see things. They have the reality. Now, of course, it's not a hujjah in the sharia, but it's a reality for them. Does that make sense, my friends? This is like really, really important, right? So that's the first point I'm going to make about this. And you should share this with people. You should share this video and tell people about this. Because we live in a world which one author called Charles Taylor talks about. We live in a disenchanted world. What does that mean? Before technology, before all this came, the world that we live in, the modern world, people believed in all of this stuff. They believed in magic and they believed in jinns and they believed in all of this stuff. We don't believe it anymore. We kind of think, oh, it's all hocus pocus. It doesn't exist anymore, right? And that's because of the world that we live in, because of modernity or post-modernity. We find it very difficult to accept that there are people in our lives, in our world, that have experiences that are beyond scientific observation, that you can't observe, you can't account for, but it's real to them. This is called experiential knowledge, right? So people used to have this, and this used to be in many traditions a valid form of knowledge. Of course, it never overrules the Sharia. So nobody can say, I saw in a dream that somebody came to me and they said that you don't need to pray anymore, you don't need to give charity anymore. No, that's not valid. But the Prophet ﷺ, he saw dreams, ru'ya salihah. He saw real dreams, alayhi salatu wasalam, and they were real to him, and they became a revelation. Why? Because his heart was pure. As we know, his heart was purified, alayhi salatu wasalam. So this is like I'm trying to give you a framework to try and navigate this, because we live in a thoroughly modern world. If a person was able to detach himself from the dunya for a while every day and just completely dedicate himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's not ba'id, it's not impossible that that person might see things, might experience. Of course, as Mawlana Shafi Tanvi says, that's not the maqsad. The purpose is not to have, to do dhikr and to see visions and, none of that stuff. The purpose is to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it's through dhikr, whether it's through fiqh, whether it's through fikr, whatever it may, everybody's on their way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the path to the divine are many. Allah has multiple sources to Him, but Allah is one, Jalla wa ala. Allah is one, Ahad. But the paths to Him are many, as shown to us by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We'll stop there. If anyone has any reflection to us, to have said, then you can. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. What say thee? What say thee? So that's that particular question that someone has asked. Bismillah. Yeah, so about phones, they can be very much a distraction. They can be a good thing, but they can be a bad thing as well. So have a tartib where in the evening you switch the phone off or it goes to silent mode and you just spend time in bed, going to sleep or reading. In the morning, you don't check your phone. The worst thing you can do is be on your phone at night in bed. It's just going to keep you distracted. Just switch off and go to sleep. Don't awaken your senses at night. Get a good night's sleep. Pray Isha with Jama'ah for the male folk and pray Fajr with Jama'ah. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, whoever prays Isha with Jama'ah and Fajr with Jama'ah, it is as though they spend the entire night in ibadah. On average, a person sleeps for 8 hours a day. If a person is sleeping 8 hours per day and she prays Fajr and Isha with the menfolk with Jama'ah in congregation, then it's like, if you think about it, that's a third of your day in ibadah. That's one third of your day in ibadah. Subhanallah. And you think about it in terms of lifetime, you've spent a third of your life in ibadah, and all you've been doing is sleeping. Yeah. So a third of your life is in ibadah, subhanAllah. Just by praying Fajr and Isha. Don't miss Fajr and Isha, my friends. Pray it. Whatever it takes. Go to sleep early. Pray Fajr and Isha. Make that intention. Tahir has asked another question. Do you feel like there's a decline in individuals pursuing Islamic higher education? If so, how does one motivate youngsters? Habibi, Tahir, let me tell you something. The only way you can motivate people is if you're motivated yourself. I don't know you, so I'm not talking directly to you. But if you're not motivated, you're not inspired from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can't motivate anyone. People who teach, good teachers have to be passionate about the subject that they teach. If you are teaching something just because someone told you to teach it, it's not gonna pass on to the students. But if you're passionate about a subject, wallahi, your students will become even better than you. And that's what you want. You have to be motivated. You have to really want people to learn. You have to really enjoy learning and teaching and reading and studying. I love doing this. I love coming on YouTube and just talking to you all. And I love reading. There's nothing more. Those of you who know me personally will know that I love spending my time reading and studying and just thinking, right? And then you try and pass on to the people as best as you can. But never lose hope, Tahir. One person, one person is guided by you through Allah's mercy to Islam is better than the world and everything that it contains. It's better. لَأَن يَهْدِيَ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا رَجُلًا وَاحِدًا خَيْرًا مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَمَا فِيهَا. It's better than the dunya and what it contains. So never lose hope. I mean, some of these ulama, they left one. They must have taught hundreds of ulama, but we remember one of them, right? Imam al-Juwayni had many students, but who is his most famous student? Imam Ghazali. Mm. So you'll find this lots of times that the one student comes and excels out of all of them. That's your sadaqah jariyah. So never, always keep the effort going. Bi'iznillahi ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We're coming up to time, so if anyone has any final comments, reflections, anything to say, they can ask me Iznillahi ta'ala. Please do share our content. Share this YouTube channel with friends, get people to watch stuff, ask questions. We're hoping to produce more. I know I keep saying this, but sometimes I just get really busy, but I want to produce more content for you, Iznillahi ta'ala. But the channel can grow only with your support, only with your encouragement. We're not asking for your money, we're asking for your du'as. We're asking you to spread this channel far and wide. We do have a WhatsApp channel or WhatsApp group. You can add yourself to that. Share our content, ask questions, keep seeking the truth, connect yourself to ulama. Tamam. I think we're going to end there, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. I think half an hour is a good amount of time. Keep your questions coming. Thank you to everyone who's been reaching out, sending messages of support. Inshallah ta'ala, I will see you all next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. And Allah bless you all and all your loved ones. And I'll see you next week. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.